hi guys. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to begin learning about simple machines. And there's several different kinds of simple machines, and some people, whenever they think of the machine, they think of something that's very complex and has many parts. And so whenever people talk about, whenever you think of a machine, they think of, like I said, the word complex, that it has a lot of different parts, that's able to do something very big. You think of maybe a factory whenever you think of machines. And that's not always the case, because a machine can be, like I said, very simple. And that's what we're going to be looking at this week, or today I should say, with simple machines and what they do and exactly what they are, okay? But first we need to talk about machines and the work that they do, okay? This passage here we're going to read, and we're going to learn a little bit about the purpose of simple machines and why people use them, okay? All right, it says, have you ever seen someone lift a large box onto a truck? It may have taken a lot of effort and hard work. Scientists can measure how much work is done whenever someone does a job like lifting a box. Scientists use a simple formula to calculate how much work is done. This formula says that work is the force that's applied to an object, and it's multiplied the distance that the object travels, and that's how much work. So, for instance, I'm going to stop right here for a second. So let's say, for instance, I have a truck. Let's say it's the back of a moving truck, kind of like the one you see below, but we're going to do something different with it. Okay, let's say that I have a box that I need to move into the truck. Okay, well, what I need to do is I need to calculate the amount of force that's applied to this object. So whatever force it takes to lift this object, I'd also have to multiply it by the distance. So if it takes me a lot of force to move this box, if it's a really, really heavy box, and I multiply it by a short distance, well, I've still got a lot of work because it took a lot of force to move that box. Okay? So now let's keep reading. Okay? This means that if you apply a lot of force to move an object a long distance, you'll do a lot of work. What if you don't want to apply that much force? Sometimes you can use a simple machine to reduce the amount of force that you have to use. A simple machine is a device that makes work easier. One way that a simple machine can make work easier is to trade the force for the distance. So if I have to use less force but over a greater distance, it makes my work easier. That's what that trade word means. This means that a simple machine can let you apply less force but over a longer distance to do the work. So remember that person who worked hard to lift that heavy box straight up into the truck. So here we had that example, right? Now let me draw a new box, or new truck, I should say. So there's my new truck. It says that person had to apply a lot of force. Now suppose that person used a ramp. Suppose that person used a ramp to slide the object up the truck. So now I'm taking my box and I'm sliding it up the truck, and it's going this direction. The person will be moving the box a greater distance. So yeah, now I'm going to go a much greater distance, because before all I had to do was go from here to here. That's a very small distance, but notice how long my arrow is now. I have to move it from here all the way up to there. So I have a greater distance, but the person will not have to use as much force because the ramp's going to help me with not being able to use as much force. In the end, the person will do the same amount of work. The ramp makes that work easier because the person has to use less force. So here I have less force. I'm going to put an F minus there. Less force, but my distance is greater. For this example, I have to use more force. So here we got an F plus. But I have my distance is shorter. There's my D minus. My distance is shorter. So that's what they were talking about here, where you trade the force for the distance. This is that trade. Here I went from less force, from greater force to less, but I increased my distance. So that's what that trade means. But because I had to use less force, that made that work easier for me. By now you should get the idea. To reduce the force that you need, use a simple machine to increase the distance. You will do the same amount of work, only this time the work is easier. Okay, and you can see in this picture here the example of the man moving the object up the ramp. Okay, and so because he's still holding on to the object and he's still taking over a greater distance, but he doesn't actually have to lift it into the truck from the floor, or from the walk where he's walking to onto the truck. He's able to spread out that force over a greater distance. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at a wagon. Is it a simple machine? We're going to look at a quick introduction to simple machines and find out.
Machines do many things. They move dirt, lift things, and build things. Machines help us get from one place to another. There are also many machines that we might not think of as being machines. These are machines that we may use every day. They may seem too simple, too ordinary to be machines. But in this program, we'll see how understanding these simple machines can help you understand much more about even the most complicated machines. We don't usually think of a playground as a place where work goes on. A playground is a place to have fun. But, despite appearances, while these children are playing, many of them are also doing work. This kind of work is different from schoolwork, which involves thinking. In science, the definition of work is moving something over a distance. So, this girl is doing work by moving her brother across the playground. Work like this requires force. The definition of force is any push or pull. Pulling a wagon involves force. Here's still another definition. Whatever is being pushed or pulled is called the resistance, or load. Here, the boy being pulled in the wagon is the load. And here the boy is the load when he is pushed on the swing by his mother. Not only is there a lot of work going on, but this playground is full of machines that help people do work. Machines on a playground? Well, in science, a machine is anything that helps people do work. Machines often help by reducing the force it takes to move something over a distance. So this seesaw is a machine because it helps these two boys lift each other up in the air. And this wagon is a machine because it reduces the amount of force it takes to move a younger brother across the playground. Machines like the seesaw and wagon may seem pretty far removed from complex machines, but all machines are alike in that they help people do work. All machines are alike in another way. No matter how complicated some machines may look, all machines are made up of combinations of simple machines. Simple machines are machines that have few, if any, moving parts. There are 6 types of simple machines. These are the lever, the wheel and axle, the pulley, the inclined plane, the screw, and the wedge.
Okay there, guys, so you saw a bunch of examples of simple machines and how they're used in much more complex machines. So for instance, there at the end when you saw that crane that was at that job site and it was lifting up things, even though it's a very complex machine, it's made up of many different simple machines in order to do that job. But all machines, the purpose of all machines is to make work easier for humans, okay? So we're going to have some questions here that I want us to look at, okay? And, oh, I didn't reset my page. Whoops. Okay, so think about what is work first, okay? We know that work is, remember on that video from last week, it's an object being moved with a force. I need those 3 things in order to get work done: an object, motion, and a force, okay? And then those things, what is a force? Well, it's obviously a push or a pull, right? It's a pull force or a push force. So that's some things that we talked about before in those other videos. So push forces, pull forces when I'm playing tug of war, that's a pull force. Gravity is a pull force. The wind is a push force, okay? So now, what was the load in the wagon that you saw on that video? The load was actually that boy in there, right? And so he was sitting in there, and that was the load that needed to be moved from one place to another. Is the wagon making the girl's work of moving the boy easier? Yeah, it is. It certainly is. It's making it move easier because there's wheel and axles there that are helping the movement of the wheels are helping her to move that load. So does she have more or less force that she needs to use? She obviously has less. She has to the simple machine helps to reduce the amount of force that's needed to do that work. So simple machines turned out to be a very great thing for people to use because it allows us to decrease the amount of force that we have to use and decrease the amount of work that we have to do. Okay, we still have the motion occurring, we still have that object, it's just that our force is less. So because one of these elements is less, it's less work. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to start talking about some of the other types of simple machines.